What's going on, bud?
I don't know how I'm gonna complete this video. We got so much work to do. How am I gonna get this done in one video? I don't know.
There's only like 3 items here. It's not that big of a deal.
No, there's a lot more than just these 3 items. You can't build a bathroom inside of a van with only these 3 items.
I feel you need to stop worrying so much about the details. Just enjoy what you're doing, have some fun,
But people are here for the details. Our viewers want to see the details of how we put this together. That's why they're here. They're not just here for entertainment.
Yeah, well, maybe you're just overthinking it. That's kind of what I think. And you need to stop.
You know what? I'm done. Again, please, just go. I need some time alone so I can figure this out.
Wow.
Just go.
Okay then, well, I won't help. I'm out. See you later, man. Have fun by yourself. Scooby Snacks!
Alright peeps, we got a lot to do here today, and it took me a lot of freaking internal thinking to get this body moving. Let me tell you, you ever felt like you just needed a break, but yet you don't want to stop because, well, I feel like we need to turbocharge this a little bit because I really want to get out camping, and it's just taking too long now. So the plan is, we're going to do the whole shower in one video. I don't even know if it's possible, honestly, but sitting here talking about it and doing camera trickery ain't getting the job done. So, let's get to work. We got toilet paper. We got our taper paper holder. We got our toilet paper holder to install. We got our shower head. We got our controls and valves. We have to put some plywood up on the walls. Then we have to wrap it all in FRP material. I've done a bunch of testing on adhesive for that as well. And I really don't know what to talk about. And I'm hoping that I even get the shower door put on today, but I'm not gonna show it to you yet because I can't guarantee you I'm gonna get to that part. But we will have a fully wrapped and finished internal of our shower. And I gotta say, I'm kind of hoping that showering in this small little area isn't as hard as trying to record in this small little area. But if you've been following along our journey for this past year and a bit, you know that we've already made videos on installing our shower pan. We've also made a video on installing our gray tank, and we made a video on installing our trusted little toilet here. And you can go back and watch that at your own leisure. In actual case, did you know we have 50 plus videos now just on building a van? Like, guys, if you hit that subscribe, I promise you got hours of entertainment ahead of you. So what are you waiting for? But to move forward on this video, now it's time to get all the walls and everything like that in place. So the first thing we need to do is we have 3 walls that still have the aluminum framing exposed. So to give a spot for our FRP board to adhere to, we need to cover it in plywood. And I'm going to use all the same procedures that we've already used in previous videos. Using our corrugated plastic as a stencil, tracing that onto our 1/4 inch plywood we're putting it as walls, and then adhering it with our PL glue. And because we have the stencil from way back when we put our power station in, the curve on the wall is pretty much the same and only requires minor adjustments. Which means the only change I made was in the scribe tool. So if you remember, we had the felt pen with the big washers when we originally made that. And it's because we were using a square piece on the round it. So we needed this big of a space to create that curve. But now that we have that piece there, we're able to go to a smaller curve. So to make a different scribe tool, I just took an 1 1/8" hole saw and made a hole in a piece of wood, which gave us a perfect circle with a hole already dead center of that circle. So I was able to make that a little bit bigger so I can fit a pencil in it. And now we have a scribe tool again with a smaller diameter. We won't waste as much material and we can get those really fine, accurate cuts. Because when this FRP board goes in, just siliconing the edges, we need these cuts to be absolutely perfect. So now for big gaps, we have the big tool, and for small gaps, we have the small tool. And before you know it, those walls right there go from looking like this to looking like that. So you'll see I put 1/4 inch plywood on that back wall because our handles and our shower head and all that are gonna be mounted to there. And for these walls, I just used 1/8 inch plywood on here and 1/8 inch plywood on here. as well as all of our edges got surrounded with 1/8 inch plywood. So you cannot tell at all that that was framed in 80/20 aluminum framing. Pretty sweet, right? And honestly, it went together exactly as planned. And if you saw how we did these panels and adhered them on, this is exactly the same. The only thing that caught me off guard with the shower was I could only actually press one wall in and hold it in place, one wall at a time, because you gotta put pressure on it while that PL dries for 24 hours. Means I can't do the other side yet because aligning them both and pressure to make sure they're straight, I just don't feel is an option. But that means each one of these walls took me a full day. So 1, 2, 3, that's 3 days alone just to do that. So now I'm expecting the same for when we put our FRP board on. But before we do that, I actually have to make a hole in the back of this wall for a product that was actually a bit of an afterthought, which is our Dometic dry roll toilet paper dispenser. So this has a cover on it so you can open it up, you can take the toilet paper you need, and then if you're gonna have a shower, you just shut it down and it's all sealed around the edges, so you got a perfectly watertight toilet paper holder. And you'll see here on the instructions that Dometic actually solved a 100-year debate that people have been having over toilet paper rolls as to what direction it should hang off the roll. Do you agree with Dometic? Comment below. But you do have options where this can mount just to the wall like that, and it'll stick out that far from the wall. Or you can actually, you see it has this flange, so you can cut a hole so this fits right into the wall, and you only have a tiny bit sticking out. So it should look nice and clean inside of our shower area. And the bonus is, this even comes with a stencil, and I think the first item ever that we can buy an item off the shelf and use a stencil to make it fit into our van. So let's cut out our stencil, tape it to the wall, and then cut it out. Pretty straightforward stuff. Which gave us a chance to use this oscillating tool we got, which, considering the situation we're in here, works fairly decent, but it doesn't give you the best cuts. And I thought about using our jigsaw, but I'm just not sure if there's enough room in behind there for that jigsaw blade. So oscillating tool it is, and it is getting the job done. Without this, this would be next to impossible. And the grand finale says, oh, it fits like a glove. Look at that. See? We now have a toilet paper roll. And it's waterproof. Pretty sweet, right? Now we're ready for the FRP board. And I've said that so many times, a lot of you probably wondering what the heck it is. And I will admit, there's nothing groundbreaking or revolutionary about this FRP product. It's an acronym standing for fiberglass reinforced plastic. And if you've had a shower before, you've probably seen this inside of a shower somewhere along your journey in your lifetime. So this fiberglass reinforced plastic is just a thin, lightweight material, and it's the textured white plastic that you see inside of showers. And you see it everywhere, honestly. You probably just never knew what the name of it was. Now, for mounting our FRP board, we're going to have to adhere it again because you can't actually put screws or anything like that through this plastic material. And every hardware store I went to recommended this Fast Grab FRP adhesive. They said that's the only way to do it when mounting this FRP board. But on these packages, it says nothing about the flexibility of the adhesive itself. It just says it's made for FRP board. But of course, they're making this for inside of a house. We're building this thing in a van, which is not the same as a house at all. And I feel like we're trudging through brand new territory again, because even the videos that I've watched on people putting this in the van, they used the Fast Grab adhesive. But again, it doesn't say anything about flexibility, where our PL, being a polyurethane adhesive, does. So I've made a little block like this. One of them says PL for PL adhesive, and the other block says FG. FG meaning Fast Grab. And we ran through all the same tests that we always do. Put them in the freezer, put them in the heater, throw them against the ground, and both of them held up just fine. In actual fact, the fast grab one, when you look at it adhered to the wood, you can see it's perfectly flush with the wood. Where the PL, when you look at it, it actually sticks up off the wood a little bit because the PL is more viscous of a material. So I'll be honest with you, I almost went with the fast grab, but I decided to do one more test. And using a putty knife and a hammer, I hammered down in between the wood and the FRP material. Now you can see with the fast grab, I put it in there, literally 2 hits of a hammer, and it popped right off. And it was not stuck to the FRP at all. It left all that fast grab on the wood, but it came clean off. The PL, on the other hand, I sat there and I hammered on that thing, I betcha 30 times. Before it's finally able to get to crack loose, and it left all the wood on the back of the FRP and took out a big gouge of wood on the back of our piece of wood. Meaning, once again, PL Premium for the win. And I'm sure glad I decided to do all my own testing, because that just helped us prevent a potential future issue down the road, and I get to share those findings with you guys. You're welcome.
And we're not gonna stop delivering value there either, because, well, when I was putting this all together, I just made a serious mistake that I'm learning from, so you guys might as well learn about it as well. So while installing our FRP board on our walls here, this isn't something I was gonna talk about much. Basically all I did was waterproof that plywood behind us with our bare waterproof paint. Then I applied our adhesive to the actual wall itself, and then pushed the FRP board up against it and held it in place so that it could dry. I did this wall and this wall first because they have the sharpest curves to them on both sides as well as on the top. So I could cut those in, and then because we're leaving gaps between here for expansion and contraction, when we put this board on, it's a nice straight cut, which means I know I can get a perfectly straight line down there for when we silicone it. It'll look like super professional. But as I was doing these edges as well, oops, let's back you up here. While I was doing the edge around where the door is gonna sit, now I have put that door in numerous times to make sure when I had our FRP board and our plywood on the sides that our door was still going to fit into that hole. But what I never thought about was when we put that adhesive on the back side of our panels and push it together, that adhesive does take space. So although I left a little bit of extra room, top and bottom, when I dry fit it in, thank God I did this, is before I went and put this last piece of FRP in here, I did bring the door in to test fit it, and guess what? It doesn't fit all of a sudden. And that's before I put this FRP on there. That FRP is close to 1/8 of an inch thick, which means I somehow need to take 1/8 of an inch out of this top cross beam now so that door fits in. Again, I'm glad I did it now before I adhered that FRP on there, or else I'd really have a mess on my hands to fix. So at this present time, I'm not 100% sure how I'm gonna do this, whether I'm gonna sand it or I'll bring my jigsaw in and see if I can just skim off 1/8 of an inch of that. I'm gonna need some time to think about that. So that probably means another Sunday's gonna go by without a video. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. But all I can say is if you're using the PL to adhere it like this, be aware that when you're figuring out your tolerances, that PL does take up space, which makes sense. I did think of it like that's why I left a little bit of a gap there. I just didn't think it would take that much space. Make sense? Good. So I've decided to go with the palm sander and just work away at it until I get that door to fit in. And what a freaking mess that makes. Yeah, I should probably have a mask on, but I can't find it. I just want to get this done. Alright, I'd say that was one heck of a shoulder workout, but we're back in business. And another cool trick to this corrugated plastic, instead of using corrugated cardboard, is that it is somewhat transparent. So if you remember, we made a hole back here. So to find that hole, then we'll put our flashlight in there, and we'll put our board back up, and I can now find our hole that we built. Not too shabby, right? And yes, in this process, I did put the glue onto the wall first instead of our panel, just because squeezing it through this doorway wasn't something I really thought ahead about. But I'm happy to say everything fits perfect. And look, we got all the edges covered on the FRP as well. And I am super happy with the way they turned out. But let me tell you, you can only do one at a time because the number of clamps we had to run down there to hold them in place. And then you couldn't get really into the shower because you didn't want to hit those clamps and end up shifting it over while that glue was adhering. So that was a day each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was 5 days, 6, 7, 8. We're up to like 9, 10 days just letting glue set. So sometimes I'd come outside and it'd be half an hour job and then wait 24 hours to dry. And there's nothing I can do about it. I worked on some other projects in the van, which we're not going to talk about today, because now we got to move forward to what I thought of in my head was going to be the hardest part of this shower build. And that is doing this wall, because first off, it's super hard to record you. If you saw the camera right now, you can see there's like no room at all for me to try and record this. And when I have it right up there, there's no way to see that screen back there. So I'm hoping you can see what we're talking about. So on this side here, we have an exterior corner, which means we can't just silicone it, because when I put that piece in place, you can see there's a bit of a gap there. So I went and bought some of this exterior corner molding that's made for the FRP material, in which it has a groove on one side that your FRP will slide into like this. And then on the other side where there's a flange, it'll just rest on top of that side. And you just hold it all in place using silicone. And then to cut this exterior trim, because of the fact of it just being plastic and kind of flimsy, as well, it has some really thin edges to it. So when you put it up against your miter saw, it has a chance of sliding underneath it, which means you won't get the angle you need, because all those corners need to be 45-degree angles. So I went and got myself a little 12-inch miter box like this that can do angle cuts either direction, as well as straight cuts, and then just using a 12-inch hacksaw. And then we just manually cut each piece which does take a little bit more work, but once it's done, we end up with a very clean cut and a perfect 45-degree angle every single time. And then for that wall and those strips that we're putting on, we're gonna use a PL adhesive silicone or sealant for the whole panel, as well as for these strips right here. And that's just because this is white, so that way if anything is visible through these strips when we silicone them on, at least it's white silicone, which we're going to go over top of anyways. And this is going to be used for the internal and external corners, as well as mounting those wall panels on. I've used this stuff in our testing as well, just like we did with our PL construction adhesive and our fast grab material. This stuff held up just as good as the PL construction adhesive, like exact match. And the only reason why I didn't use this throughout the whole part of the build is because this is like $12, where that PL construction adhesive is like $6. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it to you yet or not, but each one of these panels we put in here took a full tube of the PL construction adhesive. So at half the price, but does the same job, it's worth going for the lower cost option. And another 4 or 5 days later, this is how good it ended up looking. Check it. See? We got all that trim in. We got perfect cuts on it all the way across. And it goes all the way over to here.
And of course, I did go and do the sealing already, as well as this back panel that covers the wires. And I'll talk about how we did that when we do the wires back there, as well as the ones on this side. Honestly, I was figuring this out as I go. I was cutting a whole bunch of little tiny pieces, big pieces, at all different kind of angles, trying to figure it out. And look at my frickin' shop because of this project. It's crazy. And by the time I figured it out, it was installed and I wasn't pulling it back off just to record it. So I will record it on the next one, I promise. So now we're ready to silicone all of our edges. And we pretty much have a full finished shower almost. But before I silicone anything, we gotta drill a couple holes because this is where our handles for our shower are gonna go through. I'd rather do that now before I have silicone in here and end up getting sawdust all over it. And if you've been following, you know that we've already run our shower lines from our heating system down there underneath the shower pan and back up the back side here. So everything's already in place. We literally just have to drill a pilot hole through here, exactly where we want it. That way we know exactly where our shower handles are going to go. Then we'll just use a step bit on our drill and drill it through. You'll also see I made a mark on our step bit so we know exactly how far it needs to go through. And now our handles should slide right through and be ready to hook up to the shower lines. And of course now you can see why I wanted to drill those holes before putting all that silicone in there. So we're going to clean it all up and get it nice and spanky, shiny, clean. And now we're ready to lay some caulk. So we're going to use the PL sealant, just like I showed you earlier. And we're just going to run it down around all the cracks inside the shower. Now for me to show you this inside of here while I'm doing it, aside from the chance of me making a mistake, number two, there's just not enough room in here for the two of us. So I'm not going to be able to show you as I do it in here. But if you're like me and this is like your first time ever doing something like this, you're going to want to practice first anyways. And that's what I did. So I had these corner pieces that came with our fridge, and conveniently enough, I was able to practice on them making nice, clean sealant lines. So I bought this caulking applicator, ran our silicone down through the cracks, and then pushed this caulking applicator down through there, and check it out, it makes some really nice caulk lines. And I was now able to bring those skills that we just learned into the bathroom. So once we got all of our cracks caulked, look how good this looks. You think? You think so? And now we're finally ready for the final touches of our shower, my peeps. So the first thing I'm gonna do, we're gonna install our 12-volt touch light, which we've done 3 or 4 of these already. So we're gonna make this one really fast. We'll end up putting a bead of silicone around the edge, positive, positive, negative, negative, and it's screwed into the ceiling. So now, when we hook up power, we now have light inside of our bathroom. And it's simple little touch light. Just like the rest of them. What? And I chose the back corner this way. When you're standing in the bathroom, it's over top your shoulder, so it doesn't create any shadow down over top of the toilet. And it's up out of the way for when you have your shower head, which we're gonna get to. But now, we're gonna install our paper towel. Nope. Now, we're gonna install we can install our toilet paper roller. Now we've already made the hole as you guys saw, so very simply, we're gonna put a bead of our caulking around the edge. We just slide it into the hole that we made earlier. And screw it in with the screws it came with. Whoops, dropped you.
And now, we have a toilet paper holder inside of our van. Not too shabby, right? Next, we're down to the final 3 items, and this shower is complete, my friends. Now these items actually did come as 3 separate items. We got our 4-inch hot cold taps that has the little spout on it, so we can hook up our shower head that'll plug right in the top. And this is made for RVs where it has an on-off switch. So this means if you've showered in RVs before, you turn it on, and while you're scrubbing or doing your hair or whatever, you hit the off button so it stops spraying your water, saves your water, but keeps it at the same temperature so you don't have to keep adjusting that. And then of course we got our small little piece here, which is just the holder for that shower head on the wall. And for some reason you had to buy it as a separate piece. It didn't come all as one. So the first thing we're gonna do is let's get these handles through those 2 holes we drilled earlier. Now for the handles, when these go through, they go through the holes, and then they have these lock nuts with washers that come in through the back side and tighten everything down. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of caulking around the hole just to make sure no water can go through there. Then we slide the whole assortment through the holes. And then we tighten them down from this side. Now I think it's pretty obvious so it doesn't leak. We want them to be nice and tight so it squishes it all together. But just remember, it is a plastic nut on plastic threads. So you crank it too tight, you're probably gonna break something. Then once those are cranked on, you'll see we put some thread tape on and we just tighten those down. And we're ready to rock. Now I still need to crimp the lines and stuff like that, but I'm not going to worry about that on camera because we're just running out of time. So for the shower head, you'll see we put some Teflon tape on there again, and we just thread our hose for our shower head down on. Again, just needs to be finger tight, snug with the Teflon tape because this tiny little plastic piece will break if you try and go too hard. And then we're ready to put our hanger on for our head. So I'm not sure if you can see it on camera or not, but I did pre-drill our little holes in there to make sure our piece is going to fit in straight. So I put some silicone on it. We'll line up our holes. That'll kind of keep it in place for us. You fell over, didn't you? Yep. Of course you did. Then let's screw our screws in. Easy peasy. And that piece just clips onto there. And our shower head has a place to hang out now. My peeps, I just finished the shower. I really just finished it. Ha! Almost. Let me put the toilet seat back on. And now it's finished. What? I gotta tell you, the feeling that's coming over me as we're finishing these projects at this point is unfreaking believable. Just that feeling of accomplishment. The feeling of getting closer to us being inside of a van. My goodness, and this one was freaking huge. Like, look at that. I don't know. I say it couldn't turn out much better than that, my friends. It really could not. Well, I guess there's still one thing to be completed, and that's the shower door. But we're absolutely out of time, and it's like late on Saturday, and I really need this video to get out this Sunday, my peeps, because you guys have had to wait way too long for this one. So that's a guarantee that you know what's coming up next, and you're not going to want to miss it. It deserves its own video anyways, because it is super freaking cool. So if you made it this far, you haven't subscribed yet, maybe consider doing so. If you have subscribed, thank you. And of course, we will see you on the next video.